Hello everyone, welcome to Reality Channel. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. In the year 2002, there was a man named Abdulrahman Abu al-Sani who was Pakistani and an imam and preacher at the Ministry of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs in Kuwait. He had a daughter named Kareem who was born on May 6, 1996. She was 8 years old at the time of the crime on October 15, 2002. Kareem suddenly disappeared when she was going around 8 p.m. to a small store near her house, and she had a friend's father nearby in the Al-Kailan South area. Meanwhile, her father and mother were visiting a relative's home, and when they returned home and asked her sisters about her, they told them that she hadn't returned home. The father felt shocked and left to find her around the house, the store, and the people present in the area. But they denied seeing her, so he went directly to the Al-Kailan Al-Magaber and reported the disappearance of his daughter and provided them with her photo and description as a weak, dark-skinned girl in short Pakistani clothing. The police immediately launched an investigation to search for her, fearing that a similar accident would happen. The previous case was a matter of public opinion, so the police intensified their search for Kareem. Before anything happened to her, the search for Kareem lasted for 5 consecutive days, and they had distributed pictures of everywhere in the hope of finding her, but unfortunately all that was in vain, and on October 20, 2002, it was the 6th day since Kareem's disappearance. A report was received regarding the discovery of a small child's body by a furnace called Al-Jibla Al-Sagir. A description of Kareem was confirmed to match the description of the child Amana. After the accident, the police arrived with forensic officers and were surprised to discover the similarities between the cases of the two children. The abduction, killing, and rape were carried out in the same manner in remote and wild areas, despite the arrest of the individuals who killed Amana. You may wonder how the body of Kareem was discovered. It was discovered through charity by a Hindu shepherd who was outside herding his sheep. He noticed that the sheep had congregated near a buried area in the furnace and went to see what the sheep had collected. When he arrived, he was shocked to find the body of a young girl. She was nearly naked, and her hair and face were covered in blood. It was clear some animals had eaten her feet. The shepherd immediately reported to his employer, who went to confirm and reported the case immediately. When the police arrived, they took the shepherd and the employer for questioning. They were then let go. Kareem's father was called to identify the body of his daughter. He confirmed her identity to the police, and he and her mother were in a difficult state. They pleaded with the police to capture the criminals quickly, so the director of the investigation in the Falawani region created a plan to catch the criminals. The information indicated that the kidnapper had a Subaru Jeep. The police called in more than 120 suspects who had the same car, and they examined the car, took fingerprints, searched it with dogs, and compared the tire tracks found at the crime site. At the same time as the investigation, 3 suspects of Kuwaiti, Saudi, and Syrian nationality were detained at the Kuwaiti land border. They were taken in and questioned but were later released because there was insufficient evidence against them. Meanwhile, Kareem's father went to the cemetery to bury his daughter. The media, citizens, and some relatives were present. The father strongly declared his desire to find her killer. The pressure increased on the security forces, and the investigation was intensified. During this time, they had interviewed over 200 people, most of whom had previous records and were accused of similar cases. However, they were all released, and a Kuwaiti young man named Faraj was included in the case. He was 32 years old and had been accused of 2 cases of kidnapping and rape. The first one was for an Egyptian girl, and the second was for an Iranian girl. The court ruled that he would be put to death in the second case, but the girl's parents pleaded for leniency, and his sentence was amended to life in prison, then later to 8 years, and after he served his sentence, he was free. There was no evidence against him, and the same type of car was used, but he denied committing the crime. They questioned the shop owner, who said that Kareem had indeed come to the store and bought ice cream, and when she left, she got into a Jeep but did not see the owner. The medical report was issued and indicated that there was a wound on the neck and the chest, and these wounds caused damage to the heart and the main blood vessels in the neck. Due to the loss of blood, Kareem died. The body was in a state of decomposition because it had been a week since her death. There was swelling in her face, chest, and abdomen, and her hair was falling out. Her body was leaking clear fluids. The wounds were clearly visible, with a 6-centimeter cut on her neck, causing the complete damage to the trachea, and 2 stab wounds next to it, and a stab wound to the left chest. When a swab was taken from Kareem's lower body, it was clear that she had suffered a vicious rape, leading to severe damage to her reproductive organs. All of this happened to an 8-year-old girl. The kidnapping, rape, and stabbing made the police work even harder. The case became a matter of public opinion. Everyone in Kuwait talked about it. Some people said the killers of Kareem were the same people who killed Amana, and the people in jail were innocent. The police were wrong in the arrest. With time passing without results and no progress in catching the killer, the police decided to try a new approach in catching the killer's footsteps. They had to activate the memory of one of the rape victims to get a close picture of the criminal who assaulted her. Let's assume it was the same person who killed Kareem, under the assumption that he was in the same area. There was a little girl named Sana who was raped in the Al-Kailan area. Her rapist was not caught, so they took her to the hospital for treatment and to sit with analysts and artists and to activate her memory. They were able to get a close picture of the criminal, and when compared to previous photos, it matched the boy in Kuwait who was accused of similar cases. Police officers went to his house to arrest him, but he was living in the same area where Amana's case happened. They searched his house and his bedroom, but they did not find anything. The news reached the press, and they published his picture, personal information, and previous cases. They spoke to his neighbors and started the investigation in the Al Riyamia police station, where the police officer played a crucial role in catching the criminal. He was intelligent and had experience, and he was probably the one who solved the case. The surprise occurred when he confessed to killing Kareem and went with the police to the crime scene. But he retracted his confession and repeated the same thing over and over again. This retraction made the police feel that something was going on, and on one of the interrogation days, a team went to the house. They were looking for the weapon used in the crime. Meanwhile, it was time to pray, so they had to go to the mosque. The police officer was left to continue taking confessions and monitoring the suspect's movements. The suspect appeared tense and afraid, so the officer spoke to him, asking if he was the killer or not. The suspect became even more anxious and replied in fear, saying, "I will tell you the truth, but please don't beat me." The police officer felt that the suspect might be innocent, so he assured him he wouldn't beat him. The suspect replied, "I swear to God, I did not kill her. I never saw her in my life." The astute police officer felt that the suspect was innocent. It was later revealed that he did not own a Subaru Jeep. He had a solid alibi at the time of the crime, so he was released. Upon the police officer feeling that the suspect was innocent, he withdrew from the case and returned to the Al Riyamia police station. Around 11 p.m. was a confidential informant who informed him that there was someone he suspected, so he asked him about his past cases. The prisoner had previously been sentenced to death in 2 cases and then released on reduced charges. The secret agent confirmed that the suspect had a beard, which he had shaved 10 days. The policeman asked about his car. He said it was a black Toyota Daihatsu. The conversation between the police officer and the confidential informant took place on October 27, 2002. The police officer immediately spoke with the prosecutor, and then on October 28, 2002, the police officer and the security forces went to his house and took him into custody. They searched his car and took it to the forensic laboratory, and this marked a new stage in the case, and it was one of the important stages. However, it was difficult to get the suspect, Fargus, to confess. The police officer called Fargus to his office and started watching him. He didn't take his eyes off him for more than an hour. The suspect, Fargus, started to become confused and lost his nerves. The police officer gave him permission to smoke while he went to perform the prayer. After the prayer, the police officer reminded him about the Day of Judgment, the punishment of the next world, and warned him about the retribution of God. The suspect, Fargus, started to cry and started confessing. He said he had kidnapped and raped Kareem. He said he was driving his car in the area at 8 p.m. on the date of Tuesday, October 15, 2002. Kareem was in the same place, and he liked her, so he decided to kidnap her. He watched her and waited for her to come out of the store. She was carrying 2 ice cream cartons. He approached her with gentleness and began to chat with her. She was then persuaded to get into his car. He went to the 7th Ring Road. which is a main road in Kuwait. Then he reached a deserted, dark area and parked his car near a small mound. He asked her to take off her clothes. She did so with fear, and he also took off his clothes. After he finished, he started smoking. Meanwhile, Kareem tried to flee, but he managed to catch her. He immediately took out a knife she had in the car and stabbed her. Then he strangled her when he was sure she was dead. He then dragged her by the feet and buried her. All of this happened in 2 hours. He then got back in his car and fled, throwing Kareem's clothes along the way. He stopped by a water pond and washed his hands and the knife. He then went home and changed his clothes and threw the old ones in the nearby trash bin. After Fargus finished confessing, he helped the police identify Kareem's clothes and the knife. The police were able to confirm that the clothes belonged to the victim. The police then called Kareem's parents, and her father confirmed that the clothes belonged to her. They then took Fargus in front of the public prosecutor and they finished taking his testimony. He confessed again in front of the prosecutor and remained unafraid. He seemed relaxed during his statements and didn't show any regret. He said he was attracted to Kareem and talked about her as if she were an adult woman. After the police took him in for interrogation 3 times, they filed charges against him for the murder, kidnapping, and rape of Kareem and the rape and kidnapping of Sana. Meanwhile, the forensic report revealed that there was blood staining in his car matching the blood type of Kareem and the other of the victim named Shoda. She was 2.5 years old. On January 5, 2003, the trial of Fargus began and he was sentenced to death. His appeals were denied, and on May 2, 2003 at 8 a.m. his execution began, and so ended the story of Kareem. At the end of the story, I hope children don't trust strangers, and I hope that adults will teach children not to go out alone, except when necessary. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.